Hello everyone, I am Dr. Sonali and I welcome you all to CSE Core Concepts in the series of Compiler Construction. In this video, we are going to see how to construct a LL1 parser right from drawing the parsing table. And so this video is going to be a bit lengthy and be patient until we complete the video and create the parse tree. But the prerequisites of this video is that you should know how to compute the first and the follow function. So in case if you have missed my videos on constructing and solving problems on first and follow, please go through them so that it will be very easy for you to understand this LL1 parser construction. So let us consider a grammar. We will be given a grammar like this and we have to check first of all it is an LL1 or not, and if yes then we have to parse the string. The string given to us is ID plus ID into ID and dollar marks the end of the string. So this is the grammar where we have certain non-terminals, that is E prime, T prime and F, and the grammar is given. So the very first step is that we have to compute the first and the follow. So let us get started with computing the first function. So let us get started by computing the first of F. Okay, since it is just the end. So what is the first of S? That is ID and a open bracket. Then the first of T prime is what? A star symbol, that is multiplication and epsilon. First of T. Now first of T is not here. Okay, so what are you going to do is that you have to find out based on F. So what is the first of F? First of, because both are non-terminals, right? So first of F is already computed, that is ID and a opening bracket. So that will be the first of T. Then comes E prime. So first of E prime is plus symbol and a epsilon. And the first of E is the first of T. Okay, because it is a non-terminal. So the first of T is again ID and a open bracket. So I hope it is clear to you. Now let's find out the follow function. So follow of E is of course a dollar sign because it is the start symbol. And here again we are getting this E followed by a closing bracket. So a dollar sign and a closing bracket is its follow. Then comes E prime. Here in E prime you can see nobody is following E prime. So the follow of E will be the follow of E prime. Here also same thing, right? So dollar and a closing bracket. Follow of T. The follow of T is E prime. So the first of E prime will be the follow of T. So who is the first of E prime? That is plus. But we are not going to consider the epsilon. So we are only adding plus. Now let's see where else is T. So we have a T here again, which is again followed by E prime. Okay. So you are going to have, after that nothing is there. So follow of E prime, sorry, first of E prime, you can say you have the dollar and the follow of E, T is the plus dollar and a closing bracket. Okay. Then you have the follow of T prime. So where is T prime? T prime is here. Okay, so after T prime, nobody is there. So follow of T will be there, plus dollar and a closing bracket. Again here nobody is there, so the follow of T prime done. Okay, now again, okay, so again at the end we have F. So in F, let us see, the follow of F will be what? The follow of F will be, let's find out where is F. F is here. So T prime. So T prime will be your first of T prime, and follow of F, right? And follow of F is, yeah, follow of F is here. It is ID so T prime, you will have this symbol, first of T prime, and you have ID. Okay, ID is the first, sorry, we are finding out the follow, right? Yeah, T prime again. So whatever is there, This is. Now, students often get confused here. Just a minute. So, if we are finding out this follow of t, right? So, sometimes what happens here is that students say that follow of t is the first of e dash. That is there. But so e dash is plus, that you will add. But if e dash is your epsilon, okay, if you have to consider both the case. If your e dash is an epsilon here also, right, then what will you do? The follow of t will be the follow of e dash. That is why we have added all this, right? So follow of t will be the follow of e dash also. So follow of e dash is dollar and a close bracket. That is why we have added this. Students often don't consider the epsilon. So you have to consider if what if it is an epsilon. So basically this is what we have constructed the first and follow. So let us now proceed with 2D parsing table. So in the 2D parsing table, you have to write down all the non-terminals and you have to write down all the terminals ID, open bracket, closing bracket, multiplication, plus, and of course the dollar symbol. Now, how will you get started with that? You have to see E, okay, E and ID. Which rule of E will you derive the ID? ID is a terminal, right? So, there, what is the first here? Yeah. So, you can find out that you can write down E is TE, right? This you can, with this E and T prime, okay, this is the equation, right? Sorry, grammar. So with this grammar, E that tends to TE prime, there you are going to compute this ID using this symbol, right? Then E and a open bracket, E and a open bracket, that will also follow TE, and E plus will be followed, where plus will be followed with this equation. E dash is plus T E dash. Okay. This is between E dash, you can see. Okay. How? Again, let us come here. You have first of E is what? ID and the open bracket, right? So you have to write down in the cells of E with ID, E with open bracket. What is the rule for what is the grammar for E? E takes the form TE prime. So E takes the form TE prime. E takes the form TE prime. This you have to write. Okay, this is E prime. Now come to next. First of E dash. First of E dash is plus and epsilon. Epsilon we are not going to write now, but plus, for plus, what was the rule? E dash is plus T E dash. So plus T E dash you have to write down here. What is the first of T? First of T is ID and an open bracket. So what is the grammar for T? T is F T prime. So F T prime. I will come to epsilon later. Okay. Ft prime, ID and an open bracket. So wherever there is first, okay, whatever first is there, okay, except the epsilon, first you write down the rules, right? For T, it is star. So at T prime, with the star, you are going to write down that grammar. For F, it was ID. For F, it was ID and opening bracket and a closing bracket, right? Sorry, opening bracket. That was the first. Now coming to this epsilon part, it is bit tricky. Wherever you have the epsilon, see, wherever you have epsilon, where is the epsilon? At E prime, you have the epsilon, right? Now, wherever you have epsilon, in that case, you have to follow this follow values. That is, what is the follow of E prime? Dollar and closing. So, at dollar and closing bracket, you will write this equation of E prime is epsilon. Okay. Now let us consider where is the next epsilon. Next epsilon is here at T prime. So when there is an epsilon, you follow plus dollar and a closing bracket. So wherever there is plus dollar and a closing bracket, see, plus dollar and a closing bracket is there. There you are going to write the formula for epsilon, grammar for epsilon, and rest you have to do it. So your 2D parsing table is Done. Now what was our first question? First you have to find out whether it is LL1 or not. You will say yes, this is LL1 because here in none of the cells you have two rules clashing. Okay, every cell has one rule. So no two rules are clashing in one cell. That means it is a LL1 grammar. Since it is an LL1 grammar, we are going to parse the string ID plus ID dollar, ID star ID and dollar. So we are going to use, you remember three components of LL parser, that is the buffer to store the string, then the 2D parsing table and the stack. Okay, so now let us have a stack. Open the stack. Initialize the stack with always the dollar sign, because when we will come to the last part of the stack, dollar means the string has been parsed. Now you first start with the start symbol E. Now E has to be replaced with your the grammar. What was the grammar for E? That is TE prime. Okay. So E has to be popped out. So when you pop out E, you will be putting the grammar of E in the reverse order. Means T will be first, E prime will be later. Because what was your grammar? E is TE prime, right? So first you will add E prime, in the reverse order you will put it in the stack. E prime, then you add T. Now you have to scan one symbol at a time. So you scan the symbol, the first symbol is here your ID, right? Now the top of the stack is matched with the input string, pop it. So if you do this, T dash, now you want to derive ID. Who is the top of the stack? Top of the stack is T. Now come to the parsing table. Parsing table may you find out top of the stack is T and you want ID, right? That is your string. So which is the grammar? You follow T is F T dash. So instead of this T, you have to pop out this T from the parse table, pop out this T from the parse table and input that grammar in the reverse order, that is F T dash. Now you want ID, right? So let's go back to F. F is on the top of the stack. Yeah, you see F to ID, we got F is ID. So you can replace your F with the ID. Happy? Yes. So ID will be popped out. Understood? When you pop out the ID, right, you have to first pop out ID. So first string is done. Now your next string is what? Your plus. Okay, see, you will be going on drawing the parsing table one by one also. Let's see. So first, whom did you call? Let's go and draw the parsing table here itself. Okay, so it will be easy for you to understand. So first of all, you gave the call to the E, right? The start symbol. From start symbol, you had your what? T dash and E, right? You had your T dash, T and E dash, right? So from your E, one by one you can draw. So you can have, you had your, from your this, you had your T and E dash, right? Then you had explode T. Instead of T, you wrote what? You wrote F and T dash, right? Now this F has taken the form of your ID. Done. Okay. Now let's, ID is done. Now next symbol is plus. So let's see if T, now top of the stack is what? T dash. Let's see if T dash has some connection with plus. Yeah, epsilon. So let us do that. We have to pop out T dash also with the epsilon. Okay. Now who is on the top of the stack? E prime. Now E prime, the next symbol we want to scan is plus. Let's see E prime to plus. Yeah, I got one grammar. E prime is plus T E prime. So instead of E prime, what we will write here? We will write E in the reverse order. Okay, plus T E prime. Okay, so the first symbol was your plus. So what did we do here? With this E prime, we have written plus T and E prime. So plus is done. Okay, plus is done. Now who is at the top of the stack? T. From T we want to derive our next symbol in the string is ID. So from T and ID, do we have a relation? Yeah, FT dash. So again we will say from this T we can say FT dash. So from this T we have computed F and T dash. Now you remember F was nothing but your ID. Yes. So this F was nothing but your ID. And this T dash was again your epsilon. Okay. So this T dash was your epsilon. But our next string here is not ID. It is now multiplication. Now, do I need to replace this T dash with epsilon? First, let us see, do we have a relation with T dash and a star symbol? Yeah, we have a formula here. We don't need a epsilon. So, we can derive star from T dash. So, what is the formula? Star F T dash. So, instead of just making it epsilon, we will say star F T dash. So this T dash, I am exploring it here. Okay. This T dash will be now star F T dash. Okay. So star you can pop out. So this symbol is done. Now your next symbol is ID. So from F you get ID. We have already seen. From F we can get ID. Our string is over. So now I can say T dash is nothing but our epsilon. I can take that rule. And because in the dollar, what is the next string? Next character of our string is dollar, right? So let's see T dash and dollar. Any relation is there? T dash with dollar, yes, it is there. T dash is epsilon in dollar. So I can say dollar. And E dash with dollar, do we have any relation? E dash with dollar, yes, again E dash with dollar is an epsilon. So I will just cross and make them epsilon. And who is now the top of the stack? The top of the stack is my dollar symbol, which means my tree has been parsed. So we started with E with the rule T and E dash. T was explored, was the top of the stack. So T was explored with F and T dash. F was ID, T was epsilon. Then we go back to E prime. E prime may we had that plus symbol. Then T and E, F, dollar, and wherever it was at the end we have made epsilon. I hope it is clear to you. In case it is not clear, you can write to me in the comment section and I will try to make you explain. Otherwise also you can follow this example so that you can practice more. And in my upcoming videos, we will be discussing more about LL1 grammar and we will see those rules which will help us to understand that which grammar is not LL1. Okay, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe to CSE Core Concepts. Thank you.